interpretation, I kindly ask participants to be mindful of the additional difficulties experienced by interpreters when working remotely and of the increased likelihood of disruptions to the audio feed to the interpreters. Participants may select the preferred language to hear the interpretation or choose the non option to hear the original language of the speaker. Speakers will not be able to unmute their microphones or engage their video until given the floor. If you face audio or video issues during the meeting, please use the Restart All Lines button above the microphone icon. Should the problem persist, please reload your browser. For technical support, you may also send a private message to the moderator of the meeting. I now invite the Commission to turn to its general discussion under Agenda Item 3A in order to conclude its general discussion of sub-item entitled Socially Just Transition Towards Sustainable Development, the Role of Digital Technologies on Social Development and Well-Being of All, and 3B entitled Review of Relevant United Nations Plans and Programs of Action Pertaining to the Situation of Social Groups. Before giving the floor to the first speaker, I would like to remind delegations to kindly respect the agreed time limits of 7 minutes for member states speaking in their national capacity, 5 minutes for intergovernmental organizations and United Nations system entities, and 3 minutes for non-governmental organizations in consultative status with the Economic and Social Council. The microphone will be automatically muted when the allotted speaking time has elapsed. I thank you for your understanding and your cooperation. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of France.
Présidente.
Thank you, Chair. The Delegation of France thanks the Secretary General for his importance on the relevant items and the role of new technologies. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, regrettably, we've seen difficulty faced by several populations, especially those who are most economically vulnerable. They've been having difficulties accessing the internet and digital technologies. According to the report by the Secretary General, without the internet, it would be impossible to keep children in school during the health confinement period, during the lockdown. This means that there's a need for better access to mitigate inequality and ensure economic production with a growth model that is more respectful of the environment. France is committed to besting these challenges and making a socially just environmental transition in accordance with the 2030 objectives. The world is at a crossroads. The developments in member states have had a direct impact on the implementation of the SDGs. In order to ensure inclusive growth, we need to take measures in order to include those strata of the population that are most vulnerable. The economy also has to be addressed. There's a need for GDP growth and also socioeconomic growth. We need to use other indicators as well that involve education and the utilization of resources. Given the difficulty of internet access, the French government launched in 2020 an ambitious plan to address digital matters. We have pledged funding to ensure that those members of the population have access to digital technologies. There's a need for local connectivity and also work together with the private sector and civil society. Ladies and gentlemen, Chair, there's a need to improve access to digital technology with regard to the concept and with regard to social groups who have been left behind. The difficulty in accessing IT can differ markedly among countries. One can carry out sustainable development goals more quickly with such technologies. The new development for Africa is needed in order to improve the quality of infrastructure that is needed. I thank you, Madam Chair, for your attention. Thank you, colleagues.
I thank the distinguished representative of France, and I now give the floor to the representative of the international movement ATD Fourth World.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The international movement ATD Fourth World
welcomes the priority theme and the opportunity to deliver a statement in this commission. Today, more than ever, crucial decisions have to be made in order to ensure that the digital transformation of our economies and societies improves the well-being of everyone, and in particular those most excluded. For people living in poverty, digital transformation can bring new opportunities to break the vicious cycle of exclusion by improving access to economic, social, and cultural rights, but it can also push them further behind. Families and children living in poverty are struggling to access and keep up with remote learning. The affordability of internet access and digital tools must be made a priority in order to avoid an entire generation of children from dropping out of school. Furthermore, biases in the design, development, and implementation of technological tools and software are leading to more insidious forms of structural discrimination and stigmatization. In the era of the digital welfare state, technology is being used to reinforce social control or subject people to automated decisions made without human agency, leaving no room for the nuanced complexity of individual experiences and dehumanizing them in the process. In the case of virtual family court hearings, for example, we have seen pandemic-driven digitalization accentuate the biases against people living in poverty. To borrow from Tammy Mays, a parent advocate and activist with ATD Fourth World in London, imagine attending an online hearing about your family using an older generation phone in non-confidential home settings with other children nearby where you cannot make out who is present or even request clarification from the barristers. Digitalization is not going to fix systemic injustices if the root causes of these injustices are not addressed. If governments and private stakeholders want digitalization to actually meet the needs of marginalized communities, they must meaningfully include their experiences and knowledge throughout the process of designing digital tools and policies. Based on participatory dialogue with marginalized individuals and communities, the international movement ATD Fourth World calls on all stakeholders to engage in digital development based on a human rights approach which serves people over profit and prioritizes inclusivity, meaningful participation, equal access, accountability, and social justice. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your attention.
I thank the representative of the international movement ATD Fourth World, and I now give the floor to the representative of Irene Menkaya School, Onitsha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The statement is presented on behalf of Irene Menkaya School, Onitsha, African Cultural Promotions, Inc., and Tabernacle Worship and Prayer Ministries. This year, education system, whether circular or non-circular, faced challenges that negated programs like exchange education, global interconnection, massive connectedness, and ties, enacting action on new era of engagement through dialogue agenda, digital distribution, learning platforms, and best practices for re-engineering, creating professionalism, and critical thinking, building strong networks, global partnerships, establishing knowledge, sharing, and best practices across the world must be enabled to encourage new models, campaigns, and initiatives for providing education across all levels of education. COVID-19 has created overall disruption on global development from the local community, affecting human personality and well-being. Overall systems are disrupted, including school system, yet education remains the most paramount for societal progress and imperative for achieving the decade of action successes by 2030 and well-being for humanity. In furthering, our organizations emphasize the significant need to respond to the section through education in changing world, strategies for adapting to the new normal, changing the paradigm of transition towards the decade of action, the role of digital technology in achieving quality and inclusive education in the new normal. The theme, socially just transition towards sustainable development, the role of digital technologies on social development and well-being of all should address the strategic action plans to be considered as roadmaps on right to digital technology for quality and inclusive education. It is also necessary for the team to know the common challenges for the education sector, especially teachers, learning and learning resources in paving way for digitalizing technology to achieve sustainable social development and well-being, which in turn will enable transition towards sustainable development, positioning digital technologies on education system and social development and well-being for all. In conclusion, Madam Chair, it is important for our organization to recommend to the Commission that in re-echoing the Leave No One Behind, there must be need to balance the digital role of technology to education. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Irene Menkaya School Onitsha, and I now give the floor to the representative of the Miss Caricom International Foundation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make this statement on behalf of Ms. Caricom International Foundation. I am Dr. Monica Sanchez, founder of Ms. Caricom International Foundation. We are committed to the 3 Bs, building back better. Our outreach programs, Ms. Caricom Kindness campaign together with COVID-19 in helping marginalized people. Ms. Caricom International Foundation, in its outreach program, in developed and developing countries has utilized the use of mainstream media technology to engage, educate, and address some major concern in these grassroots communities. For example, in Nigeria and the Gambia, our team on the ground used cell phone and data sharing on social network to communicate on the ground and with residents of those communities in the distribution of essential supplies and food, masks, medical supplies, and information in native language to help with COVID-19. This task would be much more complicated and difficult to accomplish without technology and social media, as these regions are less developed and hard to reach. It is through our initiative on partnership with action that enable collaboration action to ensure sustainable implementation. The use of technology and social media has, however, given us a glimpse into the future and information as it helps to facilitate the need for continued education and information in sharing. COVID-19 has created overall disturbance on a global development from local communities, affecting human personalities and well-being in our fractured world. Overall systems are disrupted, and including social protection, flora and humanity, and well-being, yet fashion education, which we represent, remains the most paramount foundation for social progress and recognition of social identity. It is imperative that the 3 Bs, building back better, work in collaboration with the 3 Cs, compassionate, caring, competent leadership, in order for us to united and build back better after COVID-19. I thank you and I yield.
I thank the representative of the Miss Caricom International Foundation, and I now give the floor to the representative of CFAM.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. My name is Stefano Gennarini. I'm speaking on behalf of the Center for Family and Human Rights, and the talking points I will be using today have also reflect the platform Civil Society for the Family and the family articles on which it is based. It's a coalition of over 200 organizations from across the world who defend and promote protection of the family. A just transition to sustainable development requires full respect for inalienable and universal human rights, including protection for conscious rights and the rights of the family to social protection. New technologies give more and more control over our lives to the government or to a small number of large private corporations. To differing degrees, these tech giants control where we go, what we can buy and do, and more what we can say. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated this problem, concentrating even more power and control into the hands of these few tech giants. Even our political discourse is more and more captured. It is a problem political leaders are increasingly becoming aware of. When new technologies are used to control populations and suppress dissenting voices, they violate the right to freedom of expression and conscience. This control and suppression are in and of themselves injustices that can beget even more injustices. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and binding international instruments reserve singular protections for the natural family in recognition of its irreplaceable role as natural environment for the growth and well-being of all its members, and particularly children. These fundamental obligations must not be forgotten in the pursuit of new technological developments and the changing economic landscape they are creating. The right to marry and found a family is buttressed by binding human rights instruments with concomitant rights and duties within the family and of the state towards the family. Among these is the right to work and to an adequate standard of living, which is predicated in binding international instruments of both the individual and his or her family. Policies to achieve sustainable development, especially to build back better after COVID, can result in socially unjust outcomes for individuals and their family if they discriminate against small family-owned businesses who are at a disadvantage, including with regards to new technology and new onerous regulation that depend on access to those technologies. But inhibiting regulation that challenge the right to work may also include not just sustainability requirements, but also regulation on social and cultural issues, including attempts to impose social acceptance of behavior that some social groups find morally objectionable, such as same-sex sexual relations, or the imposition of new transgender athletics policies that allow biological boys to compete against girls. The family lens helps us to see these not just through a right to conscience lens, but also a right to work, which affects the rights and existence of the entire family. In conclusion, the right to work and an adequate standard of living can also be negatively impacted by excessive regulation that stifle investments and entrepreneurial pursuits, as well as technological advances that put small businesses at an impossible disadvantage, concentrating wealth and resources in the hands of few companies with control over these technologies. I thank you, Chair, and I yield the floor.
I thank the representative of CFAM, and I now give the floor to the representative of the International Longevity Center Global Alliance.
Thank you, Chair. I make this statement on behalf of OMEP.
Hello, I am a representative. Thank you, Madam Chair. I am a representative. Hello, thank you, Madam Chair. Am I online? I am a representative of the International Longevity Center Global Alliance, and our member centers are located in 16 countries in Asia Pacific, Americas, Europe, and Africa. And our mission is to help societies address longevity and population aging in positive and productive ways. We acknowledge that well-being of all is stressed in the CSocD59 session's priority theme. Older persons aged 65 and over currently comprise over 9% of the global population, and the ratio is forecasted to reach over 22% by year 2100. Digital technologies, whether ICT, artificial intelligence, or robotics, can transform the lives of older persons for the better, as long as these technologies enable them to maintain their autonomy and independence, to fully participate in society, and to make fully informed decisions. However, older persons find themselves often excluded from participating in the design, training, and use of these technologies. We believe technology should be a means for inclusion rather than a tool for further segregation and exclusion. As a conclusion, we urge member states to consider the special needs of older persons and strive to justly integrate them in the Sustainable Development Goals. For example, by guaranteeing affordable and reliable internet access as a basic human rights, by providing appropriate and timely digital training, by developing digital equipment adaptable to their special needs, by making available appropriate digital technology to ensure social protection, especially at the time of crisis such as COVID-19 pandemic. Finally, by utilizing assistive digital technology in the improvement of health, home, and long-term care. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the representative of the International Longevity Center Global Alliance, and I now give the floor to the representative of the UNESCO Association, Guwahati.
Thank you, Madam, and also Chair. The Northeast region, comprising 8 states, together cover a total geographical area of 2.62 lakh square kilometer. It occupies 7.9% of the total geographical area of the country and 3.76% of the total population. The region is connected to the mainland of India through a narrow passage popularly known as Siliguri Corridor or Chicken Neck. The Northeast India has the longest geographical border with Bangladesh, 1880 kilometer, 1643 kilometer to Myanmar. Bhutan shares 699 kilometer, and the length of China border with the northeastern region is 1325 kilometer. Therefore, Northeast India is very much important from the viewpoint of geostrategic location. The Northeast region, there are more than 200 tribes with different languages and dialects, colorful culture and customs. In Nagaland, Mizoram, and Meghalaya, the tribal population composition is more than 85%, while the other states like Arunachal Pradesh 64%, Manipur 41%, Assam 13%, and Tripura 28%. Therefore, establishment of one institute or center of UN Research Institute of Social Development in Northeastern region is utmost necessary, with at least one person from our representative may be nominated to the board of UN Research Institute of Social Development. Madam, as per 2011 census, there are 104 million elderly people living in India, out of which 5.3 million are female and 5.1 million are male. The northeastern region, the percentage of older population is less than 10%, but the initiative for the welfare of the elderly people in northeast region is awfully inadequate due to communication asymmetry, poor coverage, and half-hearted action and remoteness. Program for elderly people's welfare should be need of the hour. The Northeast India has been blessed with immense natural and cultural mosaic. Northeast India prime hotspot for tourism from biodiversity viewpoint and ecological resource is very rich, encompassing 22 national park, which includes Kaziranga National Park, where one-horned rhino is there. Shanghai, also known for as dancing deer, which is found in Loktak in Manipur, and 18 waterfalls, 12 lakes across different states, and hundreds of reserve forests. Several age-old monuments and reflects our culture and ancestor of our present customs and traditions like Ronghor, Karenghor, Talatal Ghor, etc. Monastery like Rumtek Monastery, etc., Tawang Monastery, and archaeological monument like Sri Surya Pahar, where archaeological monument of 3 religions in one hillock are present. The northeastern region international tourist destination may be developed by developing a World Heritage Site or other means. The northeastern region has a huge pool of highly skilled and semi-skilled young population who, due to lack of avenues in their home state, flock to the other advanced state for employment and livelihood. This region is seriously lacking major industries and service providers so that they get work within the region. The northeastern region suffers from a growing problem of human trafficking, mostly child and women, from the marginalized societies and poor families. This is the very critical problem in the region. Disability is also another social issue which is high importance in northeast region, as the region is lacking adequate support and initiative to cover the gamut of differentially able person. This group of people need social and government support as other human beings. Above all, the different issues as enunciated in the Sustainable Development Goal like poverty, drinking water, sanitation, hunger, gender equality, education, etc. The role of women so far in the region in the form of even funded different schemes implemented by the government department so far or proposed to be implemented requires strict monitoring so that the people at large get benefited and the goal as set is achieved. An intervention by even Research Institute for Social Development in the NER is considered as paramount importance for the development of the northeastern region. Thank you, Madam.
I thank the representative of the UNESCO Association Guwahati, and I now give the floor to the representative of the World Organization for Early Childhood Education.
Thank you, Chair. I make this statement on behalf of OMEP and the NGO Committee on Migration Subcommittee on Migrant and Refugee Children. Technology in humanitarian settings is a topic with expectations and concerns that we will amplify. Forced migration is an increasing global challenge. Many children who are uprooted are very young. Scientific evidence highlights the importance of early intervention because the developmental and psychological consequences of forced displacement can be devastating. The use of electronic media, information, and communication technologies, ICT, in behavioral health care, PTSD, and recovery support, as well as prevention programs, is rapidly gaining acceptance. These developments suggest we explore the possibility of these applications also for people in crisis settings in order to build emotional strength and overcome challenging circumstances. The issues of ICT mentioned in the Sustainable Development Goals reflect the importance of technological change in raising economic growth, living standards, and in reducing poverty. However, the growth of technology use in humanitarian settings has raised multiple unanswered questions about how to use it in ways that are ethical while balancing effectiveness, efficiency, security, as well as privacy considerations. Keeping in mind the nexus of forcibly displaced children, early childhood development, and technology, we make the following recommendations. Facilitate the achievement of the SDGs by investing cost-effective and high-quality early childhood development programs that respect the Convention on the Rights of the Child, as well as the commitments expressed in the Global Compact on Migration and the Global Compact for Refugees. Invest in a multi-stakeholder partnership for innovative digital technologies rooted in ECD principles regarding education, care, and socio-emotional learning to provide psychological support and education for the youngest children who are forcibly displaced, their parents, and their caregivers. Promote the use of technology to collect disaggregated data pertaining to the needs of forcibly displaced children and to broaden advocacy initiatives. Improve effectiveness and security in data management to develop an ethical and legal framework for governing technology and digital identity. Develop an improved evidence base for technology in early education. Build strategic planning for developing and deploying technology solutions, and promote public and private partnerships to facilitate no-cost or low-cost access to the internet in communities which are predominantly poor and marginalized in order to leave no one behind. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the World Organization for Early Childhood Education, and I now give the floor to the representative of Unanima International.
My name is Kieran Taylor, and I'm Unanima International's Research Fellow. Today I will be reading Unanima International's oral statement in response to the United Nations 59th session of the Commission for Social Development's priority theme. The impact of digital technologies on social development and well-being is indisputable and related to priority themes from the last sessions, namely social protections and homelessness. There are distinctions to how technology and internet access and attempts to gain access affect people in the global north versus south and in formal versus informal settlements. From fieldwork in Makuro slum of Nairobi, Kenya, Unanima International came to understand infrastructure and finance as two prominent barriers to access. The Rubin Center leadership explained a double challenge. Any address to infrastructure displaces people, while bad infrastructure risks communal health. Fires quickly spread because of the close range of shanty homes, visible where you could see families' homes and possessions burnt. There is rarely home electricity, and when there is, it is sometimes stolen due to the high expenses in contrast to low incomes. This increases risks of fire. Additionally, the development of cartels that hold land and control electricity was reported with great concern from community voices, and the cartel's contribution to drugs and alcohol sales and human trafficking also are impediments to social wellness and development that technology could combat. Contrastingly, within Mikuru, youth with phones are able to enhance skills of interest, like dance and sales, and engage in business or even advocacy to address the issues in their communities. An interview with the producer of the Rubin radio station revealed that radio made the village safer since its 2014 founding. Crimes are reported on air and community issues are discussed openly. Susan Walker, professor at University of Minnesota, contributed to an upcoming Unanima International publication, which discusses family homelessness, human trafficking, and technology. She states, families report variable availability of personal computers and workstations at shelters, relying on free wireless from businesses or needing to go to public facilities such as libraries to use the internet. End quote. In the global north, COVID-19 has interrupted tactics to improve livelihoods, including public technology access and education. Access to a safe, tenured home mitigates some barriers to obtaining and maintaining technology within the household. Recognition of safe, adequate housing as a human right ultimately addresses a range of inequalities exemplified through technology, including homelessness and housing insecurity. We thank our co-sponsors, the NGO Working Group to End Homelessness, Congregation of Our Lady of Charity of the Good Shepherd, Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary Loreto Generale, the Company of the Daughters of Charity of St. Vincent de Paul, Stroptimus International, International Presentation Association, and Sisters of Notre Dame du Namur.
I thank the representative of Unanima International, and I now give the floor to the representative of Make Mothers Matter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Distinguished member, I want to congratulate the Bureau and UNDESA team for all their excellent work. Thank you to give us the opportunity to raise in the voices of mothers in this commission about the challenges of digital parenthood. Digital technology has already transformed societies and economies in many parts of the world, opening new ways to communicate, changing lifestyles, and creating new types of employment. However, parents, mothers especially, face specific challenges, which were made even more acute and visible because of the COVID-19. Remote learning. Mothers are usually the ones in charge in families, much more than fathers, and this responsibility collides with their own work obligations. Many also lack digital literacy to support their children in accessing online courses. And of course, many families must face the simple fact that the lack of adequate computer or internet access makes remote learning an illusion for their child who risks being left behind. Teleworking. For those who are able or obliged to telework, childcare obligations may make it impossible for mothers to attain a reasonable work-life balance. The right to disconnect has also become an issue, and many mothers, more than everyone else, have lost their jobs during the pandemic. Managing children's screen time, protecting them, and controlling internet content. Many parents feel powerless when it comes to setting the right balance in ICT for their children, finding suitable content, and preventing online violence or access to inappropriate content. In families with children, mothers have seen the time they devote to childcare and unpaid family care work increase during the lockdowns. They have been struggling to balance telework and support for online schooling, with major impacts on their health and their ability to keep their job, a situation which also threatens to reverse years of hard-won progress on gender equality. All these challenges must be recognized and addressed by both governments and the private sector. In particular, all forms of care and education work, whether paid or unpaid, must be recognized and properly valued. They must also be seen as an investment in human capital, not an expenses to be minimized. The current crisis gives us the opportunity to bring about systematic changes. We are therefore calling on member states to build back transformatively and repurpose our economic systems to prioritize the well-being of people and place care and education at its heart. Because mother counts, parce que les mères comptent, porque las madres cuentan. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Make Mothers Matter, and I now give the floor to the representative of the Congregation of Our Lady of Charity of the Good Shepherd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This statement is made on behalf of the Congregation of Our Lady of Charity of the Good Shepherd and supported by 3 other CSocD organizations. The theme of the Commission, Socially Just Transition Towards Sustainable Development, the Role of Digital Technologies on Social Development and Well-Being of All, highlights the multiple potentials offered by technological advances that could be the vehicle towards transformation for sustainable development, social inclusion, ecological justice, and well-being of all, when used and implemented with respect for the dignity of every person, informed by a strong and human rights-based framework. Our organization welcomes the call within the report of the Secretary General to move away from GDP as the sole indicator of development to indicators of sustainability and well-being. The experience of our organization, present in 72 countries, is that currently accessibility and connectivity is not available because of significant gaps in infrastructure which contribute to the growth of the digital divide between the haves and the have-nots, lending evidence to the fact that many are left behind because they are offline. If one is not connected digitally, the result is exclusion from work opportunities, e-commerce, access to social protection, e-health, e-learning, agri-food systems, financial services, social inclusion, and participation in e-government. The World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report for 2020 warns, a widening digital gap can worsen societal fractures and undermine prospects for an inclusive recovery. Progress towards digital inclusivity is threatened by growing digital dependency, rapidly accelerating automation, information suppression and manipulation, gaps in technology regulation, and gaps in technology skills and capabilities. Our organization is dealing with the shadow side of the explosion of interconnectivity and how it is used to groom children and provide a gateway for disadvantaged and marginalized girls and children to become trapped in the porn and sex industry. These negative impacts must be equally addressed with surveillance, accountability, and prosecutions of cybercriminals, traffickers, and promoters of porn. Reports from the United Nations Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, confirm our experience, indicating that the threat of online sexual exploitation and abuse is growing at an alarming rate. Digital literacy, safety, and inclusion for all are crucial to implementing digital technologies to address social development. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Congregation of Our Lady of Charity of the Good Shepherd, and I now give the floor to the representative of the New Future Foundation.
Yes, Queen Mother. First of all, I would like to say blessings to all of you. As a humanitarian for over 50 years to the United Nations, and Queen Mother's reaching 80 years old. As an elder, it's important that I speak to you today. To this commission, Madam Chair, New Future Foundation, thank you for allowing us to participate in this important session. The focus of our comments is homelessness in the United States that are rising, the rising tide. Madam Chair, according to statements made September 2019 by the Council of Economic Advisors of the White House, over 500,000 people go homeless in one single night in the United States. Approximately 65% are found in homeless shelters. The other 35%, just under 200,000, unsheltered on the streets. Can you imagine a day like today? train stations, and etc. This is usually caused by desperate situation of extreme hardships. Article 11 of the ICE-SCR provides for housing as a human right, which the U.S. is a signatory to some effects of homelessness, of mental health, physical and sexual abuse, and the list goes on, even mortality. Madam Chair, a leading cause of homelessness which people fail to recognize in America is predatory lending fraud. This refers to unethical practices conducted by lending organizations during a loan organization process that are unfair or fraudulent. We wish to bring this issue back to the international focus, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, playing a crippling role on infrastructure deliverance and municipal systems to those in dire need. Madam Chair, we believe that member states need to invest more money and logistics to this issue for society, eradicating and return to normalization for all of us. Finally, Mrs. Chairman, Madam Chairman, we respectfully call on member states to come up with the proactive solution to homelessness and their various countries with a view to its alleviation and ultimate eradication. Queen Mother Blakely, as you know I am, and I've been into reflections. I wanted you to see the poster, reflection during this time. And I'm calling on all of us to go into that greater force than ourselves. And over these period of time, Queen Mother can only pray, and the spoken word as an elder, and asking that God may continue to reward our efforts, whatever we may call that force greater than ourselves. And Queen Mother is here to be with us. Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for allowing Queen Mother to speak. I thank you. Yield the chair back to you.
I thank the representative of the New Future Foundation, and I now give the floor to the representative of the Baha'i International Community.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The priority theme for this commission could not be more prescient. In an increasingly interconnected world, questions about the type of societies we want to build and the kinds of lives they support are becoming critically important. The Baha'i International Community's formal submission to this commission addresses the imperative of extending participation among diverse actors at all levels in decisions related to the design, distribution, and use of digital technologies. We wish to take this idea further and ask, how can a spirit of collaboration and consultation be employed in the realm of artificial intelligence, an area that is exerting increasing influence in our lives? In the development of artificial intelligence, we are seeing how unintended consequences, even injustice, can arise when decisions about its use globally are limited principally to a narrow segment of the population. Yet artificial intelligence indeed has the potential to extend and channel the human spirit to address our most pressing challenges and identify paths towards a just transition. In innovation lies the promise of tools that could stimulate the intellectual, moral, and social life of the entire human race. But this potential can only truly be released when such instruments are able to reflect the full diversity of perspectives inherent in the peoples of the world, when the means of creating these tools are consistent with the ends they seek to achieve. by bringing together the spectrum of viewpoints reflective of humanity's cross-section, to collectively interrogate the underlying assumptions of AI as well as its implications. We can more readily ensure that our innovations are just and inclusive. In applying a consultative posture, we are more able to define our relationships with AI and better equipped to identify how these tools may promote human flourishing. When various stakeholders are empowered to contribute to the process of development, it becomes easier to identify what algorithmic outcomes might favor any one particular group at the expense of another. Through this mode, we are better suited to consider how principles such as moderation, justice, and unity may be written in the very design of AI to contribute to the well-being of all humanity. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I yield the floor.
I thank the representative of the Baha'i international community. That was the last speaker in the general discussion under sub-items 3A and B. The Commission has thus concluded its general discussion. The Commission will reconvene an in-person meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, the 17th of February at 10 a.m. in the combined conference rooms 1, 2, and 3 to take action on the draft proposals before concluding its 59th session. The detailed program of work for the meeting will be available in the Journal of the United Nations. Following the conclusion of the 59th session, the Commission will immediately hold the first meeting of its 60th session for the sole purpose of electing the members of the Bureau of that session. The early identification of Bureau members is crucial for the successful preparation of the upcoming session, and I would take this opportunity to urge regional groups that have not yet done so to consider putting forward their nomination for Bureau members for the 60th session as soon as possible. The meeting is adjourned.